Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege to have you joining me here today as we talk about all of our favorite things, the world of movies and television, entertainment, and anything else that we want to talk about. Now, I'm going to let you know how today's show is going to go. I've picked out a couple of items out of the world of movie news that I'm going to run down, and then for the most part of the show, I'm going to go over to the topics and questions that you guys have sent in to me. Now, how do you get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? It's really quite simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Once again, that's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put that word topic in the subject line or else I won't see it. And also, please make sure to keep your emails to 90 words or less or else I'm not going to read them because I wouldn't even be able to fit them on the screen even if I wanted to. Then after that, for those of you guys who are watching live, because I do this show live every day, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I also do it live on the weekends as well, just not at 8 a.m. because I like to sleep in a little bit. You can send in a live question near the end of the show. I'll let you know when I'm going to be getting to that part of the show. You just simply tweet to me at John Campea. Just get on Twitter, start your tweet with at John Campea, and fire off your question. And I will get to just as many of the live questions that you guys watching live are sending in as I can. And maybe you will see your tweet pop up here on the bottom of the screen. All right, guys, a whole bunch of things have been going on in the world of movies and movie news. Now, I don't have this one in the description, but I thought I should bring this up and talk about it anyway, although I think people are making a bigger deal out of this story than I would. But we've known for a long time a lot of the cast of the upcoming Lion King. We knew, of course, the great James Earl Jones was coming back. We knew Seth Rogen was in there. We knew John Oliver was in there. We knew, Childish Gambino is going to be, Simba, all that kind of stuff. But the big missing one, we know Chiwetel Ejiofor was going to be Scar. The big missing cast, or at least the most significant missing cast member, was that of Nala. So yesterday, Disney released the full list of the cast, including Nala, and Nala is going to be voiced by Beyonce. So I'll be honest with you. Normally, other than James Earl Jones coming back to do Mufasa, which was brilliant, who voices characters in an animated movie, I really don't really care about all that much. I mean, sometimes I'll go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's a good voice for that. But really, it's an actor going into a sound booth for maybe a week, maybe doing 3 days worth of work, going into a sound booth and just reading lines off of a script. I mean, I'm not all that excited about because I'm not seeing them in action anyway. So normally I'm not all that excited, but there are exceptions. Sometimes I am. The greatness of this particular casting, though, with Beyonce doing the voice of Nala, is not so much because Beyonce's a great voice actor, not necessarily, but we haven't had great voice actors for a while. I mean, look, most movies these days, they just put famous names in to do the voice of animation. And I feel like that's a shame because for generations, we had like people whose entire craft was the art of strictly voice acting, who do it so much better than most other people do it, including regular Hollywood actors. And that seems to be gone now. I mean, now studios just go to put big names in it, even though that doesn't make that much of a difference. But at any rate, the reason I like the casting of Beyonce as Nala is because the musical element of it. Clearly, she can sing. She can sing a lot better than most actresses. I mean, sometimes you get actresses who can sing and you put them in. Beyonce is not an actress who can sing. Beyonce is a godlike singer. I mean, her pipes are just unbelievable. She's so good. So that, to me, was the key part of the announcement of her being Nala. Not so much that, oh, good, we're going to hear Beyonce do the voice acting. I don't care. I mean, you could have put any one of 1,000 other actresses in there, and I'm sure they do just as good or better of a job with the pure voice acting. But you're not going to find a lot of people out there who can sing like Beyonce can sing. And I think that's key. I think that's key that they put in one person, at least, who is a true bona fide singer to pull that part of it off. And we'll see if it pays off. Obviously, Jon Favreau's coming back to direct the film after doing Jungle Book. Now he's doing this. I think it's going to be spectacular. You know what? I'm going to call it right now. Lion King will be the 4th member, if Star Wars doesn't get there first. But I believe Lion King will be the 4th or the 5th, depending on what Star Wars does, member of the $2 billion club. Going to call it right now. Lion King will either become the 4th or 5th club member of the $2 billion club. That's what I think is going to happen. We'll see how far off I am. All right, now let's go on to a couple of the other things that I have here. I mentioned this in the movie news rundown yesterday. And by the way, guys, for those of you who do not know, Take a little bit of house cleaning here. I started a new daily video called the Movie News Feed, because what happens here on the John Campea Show is most of the show is taking the topics and questions that you guys send in to me. And once in a while, if there's big news, big headline news, then I'll talk about those off the top. But for the most part, most of the daily news stories we don't usually cover here. So I thought I wanted to do a video every day because real movie fans, they want to know everything that's going on in the world of movie news. So I put together a short video. It's going to average between 3 and 6 minutes long. A short little video that just fires through the top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movie stories of the day. Try to make it as informative as I can, get through those and blah, blah. And so far the response has been pretty good. Do me a favor, check out one of those Movie News Feed videos and let me know if that style works for you. So that way we're making sure we're touching on all of the movie news that's going on here on the channel, but also having time to really just discuss the overall subjects and topics that we want to talk about here on the John Campea Show. So getting on to one of those big major topics, of course, Thor is opening up in theaters everywhere tonight. Really, tonight is when Thor is opening up. You guys are going to get your chance, if you haven't seen it already, to see it tonight. And they just released some numbers. Now, Fandango, the giant online ticketing company, they're reporting that the pre-sales, the online pre-sales for Thor Ragnarok, have outpaced the pre-sales at this point for Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, here's why this is significant. Thor outpacing Spider-Man Homecoming in advanced ticket sales gives us a little bit of an indicator about where this thing might end up box office-wise as a whole. Spider-Man Homecoming ended up making $117 million on its opening weekend. That was a great number. Hurt a little bit because, I'm thinking of something completely different, but $117 million was great for a movie coming off of its third incarnation in less than 15 years, when the last movie was kind of a train wreck to most people. The fact that it made over $100 million on its opening weekend is astounding. And of course, right now, Spider-Man Homecoming is the #1 box office comic book movie of the year. I don't think it'll stay there. I think Justice League will replace that. But with Thor Ragnarok outpacing it in pre-sales, and Spider-Man Homecoming ended up with $117 million, it's pretty safe at this point to conclude that Thor Ragnarok will exceed $117 million. There were some early predictions of 120 to 125. I think those numbers are good. I think I'm going to actually bump it up a little bit. I'm going to say that Thor Ragnarok will come in somewhere between 125 and $130 million opening weekend, which would by far be the biggest opening for any Thor movie ever. It puts it ahead of movies like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man Homecoming and a lot of others. So $120 million for a single character standalone after the other ones didn't do nearly as well as this one looks like it's going to be. That's pretty impressive. So are you guys, some of the people who bought your online tickets in advance, are you going to go see Thor Ragnarok tonight or tomorrow? Jump into the comments section and let me know your thoughts. All right. Let's move on now to the next thing, and this one kind of blew up the interwebs yesterday. I even did a live video talking about this, but I thought, it would be remiss if we didn't bring it up here on the John Campea Show as well. Of course, we know that there's been this brooding feud, and by feud, I really just mean Tyrese Gibson has been moaning and bitching and complaining about The Rock. It's really been a one-way feud. The Rock has just really been doing his thing. So, but, the bottom line of it is this. Tyrese has been upset and angry for some reason he feels justified in being angry that Universal, not The Rock, Universal wants a spin-off movie with The Rock and Jason Statham's characters, Hobbs and I can't remember Jason Statham's characters now and name now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Jason Statham and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, they want a spin-off movie of their characters. That's a studio decision. The Rock loves this character, so he's all for it. Says, yeah, I'll do it. And for whatever reason, Tyrese, now part of that means that Fast and Furious 9 is going to get bumped by a year or two, which Vin Diesel got online and said, hey, that's great. I've been wanting an extra year bump to kind of regather my thoughts, all that kind of stuff. But Tyrese has been really pissed off about it, and he's been blaming The Rock for it, as if The Rock has that much power in Hollywood to tell a studio which movie you will and will not make. Guess what? He does not have that kind of power. Like, you can think some big movie star has all this power. Well, one of the lowliest big executives as a studio has like 10 times more power than the biggest acting star does. Unless the biggest acting star is also a big producer and director at the same time, in which case The Rock is not. So Tyrese has been moaning and complaining for a long time. Then finally, and I'm not going to go through all the ins and outs of it, finally yesterday, he jumps on social media and he basically puts out an ultimatum to the studios, to everybody out there saying, hey, sorry to all my fans, But if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I'm paraphrasing, if Dwayne Johnson comes back, there ain't going to be no Roman. I'm not coming back. That's basically what he said. He put out an ultimatum. Either The Rock gets kicked out of Fast and Furious, or I'm not coming back. Okay. I don't know what color the sky is in his world that he thinks the studios would ever pick him over one of the biggest movie stars in the world right now in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I don't know what makes him think Vin Diesel would choose him over one of the biggest. We always say today that, the movie stars aren't the ones who bring people into the theaters, but The Rock might be one of those guys who a few more people go out to the theater just because he's in it. People are not going to the theater just because Tyrese is in a movie. They're just not. I'm not trying to be mean. I like Tyrese. I've been saying that for the last 24 hours. I've always liked Tyrese. I like what he does in the Fast and Furious franchise. But let's face it, he's nothing. He's a side character. He's an afterthought character in the Fast and Furious franchise. He is. Hobbs has become a much more important character, and The Rock is clearly a much more important star. But what I thought was funny, and here's one thing, and I didn't mention this in the video yesterday, but he says, if The Rock comes back, then there's no Roman. Guess what, Tyrese? You may not come back, but if the studio wants Roman, the character Roman, in the movie, it don't matter if you come back or not. They'll just go out and get somebody else, because there's a whole laundry list of actors out there who are better actors than you. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Tyrese. I like him, but let's be realistic here. Like, the execs at Universal are not going to lose any sleep. Like, it's like they were going, oh no, what are we going to do? Like, Roman was going to play an important part in our next movie. No problem. Let's just go get one of the other thousands of actors that are actually better actors than Tyrese and put him in the movie. And there, we got a new Roman. So you can say on your social media, if Rock comes back, there's not going to be any Roman. If they want Roman, they're getting Roman, whether you're playing the role or not. So there's that. Now, there's also a very sad aspect to all this. That, I mean, look, I'm laughing and I'm making light of it and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, there's also a very serious aspect to this and a very sad aspect to this. I and a lot of other people are wondering about his mental condition right now and his mental health. He's airing out all this stuff publicly, not just about his stuff with The Rock, but the stuff about his daughter, the stuff about his marriage, losing custody of his daughter, blah, 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 somehow holding The Rock responsible for what's going on with him and his daughter and all this kind of stuff. And I see some people suggesting online the reason he's mad is that he needs the money from Fast 9 so he can fight a custody battle. And my response would be, well, I don't feel any sympathy for you on that level, because you should be a millionaire 10 times over right now. If you've squandered away all your money, that's on you. But at any rate, the situation would, you wouldn't wish that on anybody. Somebody being in a custody battle for their child. That's awful. And that's terrible. And I understand that's, some extenuating circumstances to keep in mind when we see him melt down like this. But the reality is, if you're a movie star in the position that Tyrese is in, you have to be cognizant of the fact that when you send out tweets like that, it doesn't matter what your situation is. When you put out stuff like that publicly, you are backing yourself into a corner and you are screwing yourself. Because at this point now, I will guarantee you we are never going to see Tyrese in another Fast and the Furious movie again. It doesn't matter if he changes his mind. There are execs at Universal going right now, look, if this guy is this unstable and he's going to damage our property, because, you can talk all you want, oh, Fast and the Furious is a family. Well, guess what, dude? You are damaging your own property. Because you are destroying this perception of the Fast and the Furious family. You're destroying the perception of unity. You're dragging the name of Fast and the Furious through the mud by dragging all this out publicly. And you have put Universal in a position where it's like they have no choice. They're going to have to get rid of you. They have to get rid of you. Because number one, they can't trust you. Because clearly you can't discipline yourself to not hop on your phone and start tweeting out or Instagramming out all this ridiculous nonsense. But also showing that you're kind of unstable. And now you've put them in a corner. You've given the studio an ultimatum when you are not in the position to give ultimatums. So while I feel very sad and very sympathetic for what he's going through with his daughter, the fact that he's dragged his situation with his family, his real life family and his real life family problems into this public feud about the movie business and things going on with The Rock, that's pathetic. And he can't be doing that. And while I wish him all the best, And I hope things really work out. And I hope him and his wife or ex-wife can work out their differences to come up with a shared custody thing, if it's even safe for the child. Now I'm wondering if a child's even safe with this guy when he's acting so irrationally. But I hope it works out for him. It's just that we're never going to see him again in a Fast and the Furious movie. I'm sure you guys have a lot of comments and thoughts about that. Jump into the comments section, or if you're watching us live, maybe get ready to send out a tweet about that a little bit later. All right, with that out of the way, let's move on to the first emailed in topic of the day that you guys have sent in to me. And we start off the first one with Daniel Vasquez, who writes, besides The Incredibles 2 and Wreck-It Ralph 2, what are some of the animated movies of next year you are looking forward to or not looking forward to? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And it's like, I got excited when I read this question because, oh yeah, it's reminding me Incredibles 2 is finally coming. It's finally coming. 2018, we're finally getting Incredibles 2. Wreck-It Ralph is finally coming. This is a movie that should have come out a year ago or 2 years ago. I think they've been a little slow on the uptake with Wreck-It Ralph, but whatever. I'm just glad they're bringing a second one. I thought that movie was incredibly special. I just love Wreck-It Ralph. What else is coming out? And all this is great, by the way, because this year, I haven't seen Coco yet. I'm seeing Coco on Monday. I think I'm seeing Coco. But aside from Coco, which I'm looking forward to and I haven't seen yet, this has not been a particularly strong year for animated films. There was the Lego Batman movie, which was excellent. But nothing else has really gone, wow, that movie was great. I haven't walked out of a single animated film other than the Batman movie, the Batman Lego movie, going, wow, that was great. Like, I just haven't been able to have that experience, which is too bad. So in 2018, we got Wreck-It Ralph 2. We got The Incredibles 2. There are a number of others. Some people are talking about Peter Rabbit. I'll be honest with you. I watched the Peter Rabbit trailer, and I know a lot of people I respect a lot watched that Peter Rabbit trailer, and we're going, oh, wow, that was great. And I'm like, really? That wasn't that good. So I'm not all that excited about Peter Rabbit. There's this one coming out that could be cute called Sherlock Gnomes. That could be cute, but I don't have a lot of high hopes for it. I'm not all that interested in Hotel Transylvania 3. We are supposedly getting that animated Spider-Man film, but I still have my doubts that that's going to happen. We've got, there was the Disney film Gigantic, that Jack and the Beanstalk movie, but that got canceled. Disney canceled that a few weeks ago. I think there's supposed to be a Madagascar 4 that's coming out. So, I mean, that could be there as well. Two of them that I am looking forward to, though. One is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I am quite excited about that. I love The Grinch Stole Christmas story. I even love the live action How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. I love that movie. I watch that movie at Christmas time. I love it. I know a lot of you don't like it, and that's perfectly fine. That's great. For me, it totally works, and it warms my heart, and I really enjoy that movie. So I'm really excited to see another animated take coming, a full-length feature animated. I think that could be pretty cool. The other one, whose trailer came out a few weeks ago, that I'm looking forward to in 2018, is The Isle of Dogs. That one looks pretty interesting too. I did not flip my lid for it like a lot of other people did upon seeing the trailer, but I liked it, and I think it looks really promising and really interesting. So I'd say the two animated films I'm looking forward to most coming out next year, besides The Incredibles 2 and besides Wreck-It Ralph 2, is How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Isle of Dogs. Those ones look really good to me. But I'm curious, what animated films are you guys looking forward to next year? Jump into the comments section and let me know. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us from Stevan Mladenovic, who writes, should Warner Brothers use Flashpoint to reset the universe if Justice League fails? But how will people react to something like this? People who love the universe that they have established will be disappointed with this, and people who don't might be turned off by this decision because if this is a possibility, why would we ever be invested in these characters if WB can just reset the universe? Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And first of all, I've established Justice League isn't going to fail. It's not going to fail. I think it's going to be, I've said this before, I will continue to say it. I think Justice League will be the first or the second DCEU film to get over a 70% critic rating. I think it's going to be received well by the audience. I think it's going to do great at the box office. Like, it's not going to make $2 billion, but I think it'll join the $1 billion club, which will be the first DCEU film to do that. And I think it's going to be really successful. I think it's going to be the #1 box office comic book movie of the year. I think it's going to be good. So I don't think it's going to fail. But okay, let's talk theoreticals. If it failed, for whatever reason, and they decided to use, which by the way, we don't know that if it fails, are you going to use Flashpoint as a reset? That's just a lot of things some people are speculating, but there's been nothing to point to that's a fact. But, okay, fine, let's speculate. Speculating's fun. So if Warner Brothers wanted to be able to use Flashpoint as a tool to reboot the DCEU and reboot the universe, that's really not all that bad of a thing. Like, you're concerned about, won't people be disappointed? Well, look, put it this way. If something's not working, you have two options. Go back to the drawing board or keep going ahead with something that's not working. I mean, obviously the smart decision is to go back to the drawing board. You can't, and look, if Justice League failed, if it failed, and again, we're theoretically, if it failed, then you'd be talking 4 out of the 5 that were divisive at best. Man of Steel, which is in my top 10 comic book movies of all time, but it was very divisive. Batman vs. Superman was very divisive. Suicide Squad was very divisive. Wonder Woman worked on all the levels. It hit all the chords. So, critics, audience, box office. Won them all. Great. So there's one. If now Justice League comes out and fails, that'll be 4 out of 5. At that point, if you're a company, you can't just say, well, let's just keep doing it. No, you've got to at some point reset. You do. Now, the whole notion that, well, why would anybody get invested in the characters if we know that Warner Brothers could just at any time reset? It's worked for Spider-Man. They're now on their 3rd live-action incarnation of Spider-Man. And guess what? It's still totally popular. Right now, Spider-Man Homecoming is the #1 comic book box office movie of the year. Clearly, people were fine. They got over the loss of Tobey Maguire. They got over the loss of Andrew Garfield. And now we got this 3rd guy, this Tom kid. And guess what? People bought into him. So, and look, Hulk. They reset the Hulk a couple of times too. Everybody loves the Hulk. So I think your fear that no one's going to get invested in these characters if they know Warner Brothers might just reset. Well, yeah, they will. Yeah, they will. We've seen it. There's proof that it does happen and it does work. The only question will be if they reset it and then reset it well and reset it right. If they reset it and they make a bad movie, then yeah, then no one's going to like that. But if they reset it and it's good, then everything's fine. I think we've seen proof of that. We've seen evidence that that's the way it works. There's nothing wrong. Again, I don't think they're resetting the universe with Flashpoint. They might reset some elements of the universe with Flashpoint. But I think as far as a wholesale resetting the DCEU, I don't think that's happening. Once again, I do think they'll reset a couple of elements of the DCEU, but not the DCEU as a whole, because I think Justice League is going to work out just fine. And if for some reason it doesn't, then yeah, maybe they look at Flashpoint as a reset button, or they just start again without Flashpoint. They just scrap everything else, start again in 2 years with a whole new Superman movie with a new Superman, and just start the universe all over again. We'll have to see what they do. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Daniel Yamasaki, who writes, John, I was wondering, why do movies come out a day before the advertised release date? For example, Justice League has just been advertised to come out on the 17th, but it will actually open on the 16th. Okay, thanks a lot for the question. And hey, Anne can't hear me. I wanted to bring something out here and show it to you, but I'll have to do that a little bit later. Anne's getting ready for work, so that's why. So hey, can you grab something off the fridge for me? There's Justice League tickets on the front of the thing. So Anne heard me, yay. Okay, so as we all know, I got that up here. Okay, so Star Wars: The Last Jedi, it opens on a certain day, right? Or let's go to Justice League. Justice League, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, whatever. They all open. They have an advertised day that they open on. Thank you so much. An advertised day that they open on. And we know that Justice League opens on the 17th, right? Okay. Well, I just happen to have, now I'm going to see an advanced press screening too, but I still, even though I'm going to see a press screening in advance, I still went out and got my tickets for Justice League. Here's my Justice League tickets right there. I bought Justice League tickets for opening night. Now, even though the movie opens on the 17th, these tickets are for the 16th because that's the Thursday night. We all know movies really open on the Thursday night. What's interesting about these tickets, though, is that, okay, let's actually walk this through. How this all started, and I believe it was Star Wars that actually started this thing. I could be wrong about that. But how this all started was that the movie would open on the 21st. Okay, that's when the movie's opening. But if it was a really super highly anticipated movie, what they used to do, and this was just a couple of years ago, what they used to do was have midnight screenings. You guys remember those? They don't exist anymore, basically, but the midnight screening, if the movie opens on the 21st, then, and it's a super mega popular movie, they know it's going to be really popular, they would open it on midnight at 12:01 a.m. on the 21st. So the midnight screening, and people would go and line up, call in sick to work the next day, and go to the midnight screening to see be the first people to see the movie, blah, blah, blah. Well, what happened was, pretty soon almost every movie started to have a midnight screening. And then what happened was, and this all happened in a very quick, short rate of time, they went from midnight screenings to 11 p.m. Then there was 11 p.m. screenings. And then there was 10 p.m. screenings. And now you get 7 p.m. screenings on the day before the movie. Even though the movie officially opens, in the case of Justice League, on the 17th, instead of midnight, they moved back to 11, then they moved back to 10, they moved back to 9, and now it's like at 7 o'clock. You can go to a 7 p.m. screening the night before on Thursday, even though it's supposed to open on Friday, the 17th. It really opens on the 16th. What's interesting to me about the Justice League situation, and you can't see this, but right here near the top of my tickets, the screen time for this is on the Thursday. It's at 6 p.m. This is the first time I have seen that the movie's opening the day early is actually at 6 p.m. That is the earliest time frame I've ever seen. I've never seen it that early. Now it just leads me to believe that pretty soon we're going to get a 5 p.m. and a matinee at 1 p.m. and then first thing in the morning, 9 a.m. the day before. I mean, so that's how it all kind of came about. It came about with the big thrill, and I got to admit, I missed the midnight screenings. It started off with the big thrill of the midnight screenings. Movie theater industry realized, hey, we're onto something by having these early screenings, so let's make it a little bit earlier, and then a little bit earlier, and then a little bit earlier. And now, really, when a movie says opening on Friday the 21st, what that really means is it'll be in theaters on Thursday the 20th. That's what it really means. And that's how that all came about, was just a slow progression of going from trying midnight screenings to midnight screenings becoming a regular thing. Then it became 11, then 10, then 9, then 7, and now apparently we're sitting at 6 p.m. screenings for a Justice League on the 16th at 6 p.m. I mean, so that's kind of unique and rare and odd, but whatever. Hey, it is what it is. I'm just excited going to be seeing it for a couple of times. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Mark Lemming, who writes, "Hey, John, big fan since the AMC days." Thank you so much, Mark. Question: what film do you think is Tim Burton's most underrated film? He's not up there with one of my favorite directors, but I can't help but very much appreciate his directing style. For me, his Sweeney Todd film is one of the films that I can't help but keep going back to. What are your thoughts? Well, thanks a lot for the question. I don't know that you can call Sweeney Todd an underrated film. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. So I don't know that you can call Sweeney Todd an underrated film. Look, I will admit, I am one of those few people out there that I'm actually not a big Tim Burton fan. Don't get me wrong, he's made some movies I do enjoy, but I find his directing style overrated. I mean, in the last number of films, like Big Eyes, his Alice in Wonderland, things that just been atrocious and been bad. I'm not a big fan of Tim Burton. I'm curious to see what he does with Dumbo, but honestly, I'm skeptical because it's Tim Burton. I am not a big Tim Burton, and I know a lot of people are. Here's the funny thing. You asked me what Tim Burton film do I think is underrated. Here's the funny thing. One of my favorite films of Tim Burton is actually probably the movie that most Tim Burton fans hate the most, which is, I think his Sweeney Todd film is underrated. Sweeney Todd, I'm sorry. I think his Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie is underrated. I really do. I think it's underrated. I watched that movie and I thought it was warm and I thought it was funny and I thought it had more character to it than people gave credit for. And does it live up to the original? No, it doesn't live up to the original, but I don't believe a reboot has to live up to the original. Just give us a decent movie. And I'll be honest with you, I thought what Tim Burton did, and I'm not even a Tim Burton fan, I thought what Tim Burton did with his Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was very creative. I thought he did some really good things with it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not jumping up and down with it. I'm not saying it's a top 50 film of all time. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying I appreciated it. I thought he did some really cool things with it, and I know most people don't. Hence the term, I think it's underrated. You can't take a movie that everybody loves and say it's underrated. No. I think this movie is underrated. I don't think it gets the credit or the love that it really deserves. Okay, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Matthew Leach, who writes, John, what are your thoughts on Elfman's comments on how he won't be using Zimmer's /XL's Batman theme, and how there is only one Batman theme that is his? I found his comments a bit too self-centered and cocky. I wasn't a fan of how he talked about it and handled the question. Oh, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, so Danny Elfman, for those of you who missed this the other day, I believe it might even came out yesterday. He was being interviewed, and they were talking about the soundtrack for Justice League, and he's talking about some of the things he's doing for Justice League and all this kind of stuff. The interviewer them asked the question, are we getting is there going to be a new Batman theme for the Justice League movie? And Danny Elfman said, no, there will be no new Batman theme. And he says, we're using the Batman theme. And then the interviewer asked Danny Elfman to clarify. So the one that Zimmer did for Batman versus Superman? And Danny Elfman goes, no, there is only one Batman theme. Mine. There's only ever been one Batman theme. Mine. And that's got a lot of people online going, hey, look, I really like Danny Elfman, but guess what? There was this little series of films called the Nolan Dark Knight trilogy that had a Batman theme, and Batman versus Superman had a series, the Batman suite, if you will, in there. So there have been other themes, but here's Danny Elfman going, no, there's only one Batman theme, which is his. And I do like his Batman theme very much, don't get me wrong. Now these comments that he made rubbed some people the wrong way. It came across as very arrogant, very cocky, very disrespectful to Hans Zimmer, because Hans Zimmer's did Batman themes. Go back and watch Christopher Nolan things. There are Batman themes and all that kind of stuff. And it's rubbed people the wrong way, and he's come across as very cocky, self-centered, that nobody else's work counts, only mine. And that's how he came across to some people. Here's how I look at it. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong about this. I think he got caught a little bit in semantics. What I think he was really conveying was that, and again, I might be wrong about this, and tell me if you think I'm wrong about this, but this is what I interpreted, okay? I think what he was saying was that in a musical sense, neither the Christopher Nolan trilogy nor the recent Batman vs. Superman movie had a true theme. Like, there was not a one piece of music that was clearly defined as the Batman theme. This is his theme song. Like, Vader has a theme. Leia in Star Wars there's a Leia theme. John Williams will tell you that this piece of music is the Leia theme, all that kind of stuff. I think what Zimmer was saying, but he just said badly, and it came across the wrong way. I think not Zimmer, but what Elfman was saying was that there actually hasn't been, with all the music that Zimmer did in the Dark Knight trilogy and what him and XL did in Batman vs. Superman, they never actually designated a single piece of music that was the theme for that character Batman. That's what I think he was saying. I think he was using semantics here. I just think he was saying, mine is the only theme because nobody else ever actually made a theme. They made music around the character, but nothing they said was the Batman theme. And what I think Elfman was simply saying was, I'm still the only guy who actually made one that says this is completely, specifically for this one character, this is his theme. And I think he's just suggesting that Zimmer chose not to do that. That's what I think Elfman was saying. I don't think Elfman, when I watch the interview and I hear him talking, I'm not hearing him saying, the way I interpret it was not him saying, oh, Zimmer is nothing to me. Only my Batman theme is the Batman theme. I didn't interpret that the way he was saying it, because in that same interview, he talks as if he worships John Williams. He talks very respectfully of Hans Zimmer. He doesn't come across to me in that interview as a guy who thinks he's above everybody else and my music's so much better than theirs that only my theme is the true theme. It just doesn't come across. It doesn't seem consistent with the rest of the interview. You know what I'm saying? So I think he was not trying to be cocky. I do not think he was trying to be self-centered. I simply think it was a matter of semantics. He's just suggesting that Zimmer never chose to make a dedicated Batman theme, whereas Elfman did choose to make a dedicated Batman theme, and therefore this is the only Batman theme there's ever been. That's in his mind what I think he was saying. I don't think he was trying to be a jerk about it, but that's just my thought. Okay, guys, with that out of the way, in just a second, we're going to go now to you guys. Those of you who are watching, I know there's over 1,000 of you in the chat board right now. We're going to go to those of you guys who are watching live, and I'm going to take your questions on Twitter. Now's the time to start firing some in. You can tweet to me at John Campea. But before I do, it is time for my daily commercial break where I do my brief shameless plug. Of course, you guys know I no longer work for the corporate overlords. I'm no longer a slave to the whims of the corporation. I do my own thing. The only way I was able to make that decision was because of the support of my Patreon supporters. This takes my full-time commitment to do it, and it's my Patreon supporters who make this possible. So do me a favor. If you're somebody who enjoys watching these programs and you spend any amount of time every month watching my videos, go over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter, how being a Patreon supporter makes these shows possible, and what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter. And after reading all that, maybe you'll become one of my Patreon supporters too, which would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just glad you're here joining us for this discussion with me and the other film fans. All right, guys. So now, with that stuff out of the way, time to get to the more improv part of the show, which is taking your live tweets. Let's see if I can get my Twitter all set up and we're ready to go. And the first live, remember, I can't even go over these. I can't screen these. These are just coming up. Markel writes, John, if Justice League could be affected by Battlefront 2, then couldn't Thor Ragnarok be affected by the new Call of Duty? Well, actually, that's the point I made the other day. Like somebody suggesting that, you know, Disney is making a coordinated effort to attack Justice League by having Punisher come out on the same day and having Battlefront 2 on the same day. And I said, well, follow that logic through. If that were true, then releasing Battlefront 2 on the same day as Justice League and Punisher would also be damaging Punisher. So why would Disney do that? Why would Disney hurt their own property? If putting Punisher out on the same day as Justice League is meant to hurt Justice League, wouldn't that also hurt, the potential opening week sales of Battlefront 2, since people aren't rushing out to the store to buy it? They want to stay home and watch Punisher. So you have to follow that logic through, and the logic doesn't go through. The logic, obviously Disney would not do anything on purpose that they would purposely hurt their own brands. Therefore, I don't think they're doing it to try to attack Justice League, because if they did, it would be attacking their own properties too. So I think we're all fine with that. Okay, let's move on to this one. This one comes to us from Blu-ray Billy, who writes, John Campea, what is the most disappointing film of 2017 so far, in your opinion? I'd have to go through a list. I honestly, because I can't even remember which films came out this year. I can't think of that off the top of my head. I need some time to actually sit down, go through a list and figure that out. It's a good question. It's just not one I can answer off the top of my head. Sorry. All right. Next tweet comes to us from Movie King 9, who writes, John, who is the best wrestler turned actor? Oh, that's easy. It's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. No doubt. No question. Hulk Hogan is not the one. Triple H is not the one. Although I did like Triple H in Blade Trinity, and there's nothing to like about Blade Trinity. Dave Bautista is not the one. Hey, look, Dave is doing great, and the directors working with Dave are doing great, playing to Dave's strengths while hiding his weaknesses. Dave Bautista, and I'm a big fan of Dave. Dave Bautista's been on my programming before. I'm a big fan of. I've sat down one-on-one with Dave a couple of times. I love Dave Bautista. He's got Filipino heritage, which practically makes him family to me. But the reality is, and Dave Bautista is the first person to tell you this. Dave Bautista actually told me this when I sat down to interview him one time. He said, look, I'm not the greatest actor in the world, so I feel very blessed and gifted that I can use what strengths I do have to come in and be a part of films like this, and I want to get better as an actor. And while we do see him getting better, there's been nothing that he's been in that's required him to show any type of range or stretch. The Rock, on the other hand, whether you're talking about Snitch or Faster or things like that, he has been in movies, or even that Michael Bay film, Pain and Gain, is that what it was called? Anyway, we've seen The Rock actually be in roles that have stretched him and pushed him, and we've seen how far he's come as an actor. Could David Bautista become as good or better than The Rock? Sure, that could happen. The Rock's just been doing it a whole lot longer than Dave Bautista has. So I would say, no question to me, The Rock is the best one to date. All right, let's see. YNEB writes, John, hey John, should we be excited for Creed 2 without Ryan Coogler? Love the first movie. Thanks, and keep up the good work. Absolutely. Absolutely. Why? Because Sylvester Stallone still had a lot of hand in Creed. Even though Coogler's the director, the Rocky franchise is Stallone's franchise, right? And he's directing this one, all right? And he directed Rocky 2, Rocky 3, and Rocky 4. Some of the greatest Rocky movies of all time. I see no reason not to be excited for this. And he's still, look, if I remember Stallone saying correctly, he's still going to collaborate a bit with Coogler on this. He's going to, Coogler's going to be in Stallone's ear. They'll talk through it and they'll figure some things out together. So Coogler will have some influence in the film. It's going to be a Sylvester Stallone film, but that's not concerning at all because some of the best Rocky movies there have been directed by Sylvester Stallone. So, look, had I had my druthers and I was the head of the studio and I got to pick who was going to direct the Creed 2 and I could prevent, Ryan Coogler for working from other people and I could say, no, sorry, Ryan, you got to come back and direct Creed 2. I would have picked Ryan Coogler. Sure. Yes. But Sylvester Stallone directing it is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. Nobody knows the Rocky universe and the Rocky world better than Sylvester Stallone. Not just because he's acted in it, but he's also written them, he's directed them, he knows this world, and he's done some of the best ones ever. So I'm perfectly comfortable with Creed 2, with him coming back. Would I have preferred Coogler working with Stallone as the director? Sure I would have. But this ain't a bad second choice either. So I think we have every reason to still be very excited for Creed 2. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Starlord Jack, who writes, John, when will you make your next 5 great things about video? Yes, you know what? I abandoned that and I shouldn't have. I am going to get back to those. Now, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, I just started a series. I think I just did 2 or 3 of them called 5 Great Things. And what it really is about, it's about my whole notion that the best movies out there have problems. And the worst movies out there have some good things going for them, even though they're terrible. So I did like Fantastic Four. I think I did The Amazing Spider-Man 2 or something like that. But the point was, I was making these videos about terrible movies that I highlighted 5 things that movie at least did right. Even though the movie might have been terrible and awful, here are 5 things that it did well or did right. And I always intended that the next one I was going to do was going to be for the M. Night Shyamalan classic, The Last Airbender. So that will be it. That is the one I'm going to do next. I will do it within the next week. I'll have another video up, the 5 great things, and it'll be 5 great things about The Last Airbender. Thank you for reminding me of that. Keep your eyes open for it. And by the way, guys, email me. Email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Don't put topic in the subject line. Just email me if you have a suggestion for some really awful movies that you would like to see me do a 5 great things about. So send in some suggestions. I'm open to hearing from them. All right, let's go on now to the next Twitter question. The next Twitter question comes to us from Prylinch90, who writes, John, have you seen any of the direct-to-home video DC animated movies? If so, which ones have you enjoyed? Yeah, mostly they're crap. I'm sorry. I know there are people out there who love the Marvel animated stuff and love the DC animated stuff. I'm sorry. They're snooze fest crap. Flashpoint was pretty good. I'll admit, I sat through and I enjoyed Flash. Killing Joke was just brutally awful. What was one of the other recent ones? And I don't count The Dark Knight Returns as one of those because that was a special thing. The Dark Knight Returns was very good. It was a very faithful adaptation of the graphic novel. I like that one too. So I liked Flashpoint well enough, and Dark Knight, but really, and I like the one Marvel one that came out about 5 or 6 years ago, the Doctor Strange animated one. That one was okay, but for the most part, honestly, I find them to be crap. I honestly think, and I'm not saying this definitively, but part of me, just my head goes to a place where I wonder, like, are people just saying they like it because they like DC so much? I don't know. I find them boring and snooze fests and terrible, but that's just my opinion. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. If you like them, awesome. I celebrate that you like them, but somebody's asking me what I think about them. Honestly, I'm not that big on them, except for a couple of them that I think have been pretty good. And which is one of the reasons why I'm not all that excited for the animated Spider-Man movie. It's just that I haven't loved these animated adaptations a lot so far. So, yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, let's see. Darth Y. Vim, who writes, John, would you like to see a reboot of Airwolf? Thanks and keep up the great work. I loved Airwolf. Jan Michael Vincent. Yeah, I loved Airwolf. I thought that was great. And it's funny because Airwolf was in the same era and was kind of a copycat of Blue Thunder, which was another super teched out helicopter show, or movie that was then turned into a show. Roy Schneider starred in the original Blue Thunder movie about this helicopter, and all the technology that was in it actually exists today, but this helicopter that it was decked out with all the technology, was like an ultimate weapon, and Roy Schneider got his hands on it, used it for good and all that kind of stuff. So then came the Jan Michael Vincent show, Airwolf, which is kind of the same thing. This guy, he's a rebel. He kind of stole this high-tech piece of helicopter and he uses it just for good, and he takes it out on missions to save people. It's like Knight Rider with a helicopter, but the helicopter doesn't necessarily talk. So you know what I mean? And I loved it. I thought it was great. I would love to see a Airwolf. The problem is there's so much technology now, like even just military technology, that I'm afraid that an Airwolf reboot would struggle to give us that sense of awe and wonder, when I think most of the technology that was in the Airwolf show actually exists today. So that would be the struggle. But yeah, I'd be up for seeing an Airwolf reboot. Absolutely. Let's see this one. This one comes to us from HZ0023. Right, John Campea, Star Trek Discovery or the Orville Star Trek Discovery? I'll admit the Orville has gotten better. I wasn't thrilled with the premiere of it, but they have done a couple of episodes that have been pretty clever. And I can say now, which I didn't think I could say after watching the first episode, with the Orville, I can say I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying watching the Orville. The last episode they did, I thought, was very, very clever, which was they come across a society that is a pure democracy. Everything's built on social media, upvoting or downvoting. If you watch the show, you know the one I'm talking about. And I thought it was a very interesting piece of social commentary. It was very clever. It was very good. I just think Star Trek Discovery, well, the difference is the Orville is a Star Trek wannabe ripoff show. And you may enjoy it, but you have to admit, the Orville is nothing but a Star Trek wannabe and ripoff show. It's just a ripoff of Star Trek. That's all it is. Whereas we could use, if you look at Star Trek Discovery, it is pure Star Trek. And I love it. I know there's some pure Trek fans out there that don't like it. I really don't care. I think the show's brilliant. I'm really loving it. I love the captain. I love the main character. I even like Rainn Wilson as Mudd. I didn't think I would at first, but this last episode, I really dug it. I'm in loving this show. And it's a show that literally has movie type of budgets and movie production value to it. I am loving Star Trek Discovery. And that's difficult for me to say, because if you remember, I spent the last 6 months trashing this show, saying this is going to be a failure. It's such a stupid idea to put it on CBS All Access. And I still think it's a dumb idea that it's on CBS All Access. It should just be on CBS. But at any rate, and I said, this is going to be awful. It's going to be a train wreck, blah, blah, blah. And then I watched the premiere and I'm like, damn, I liked it. I liked it a lot. So, I just got to call it as I see it. So yeah, for me, it's a no questions asked. It is definitely Star Trek Discovery for me. All right, let's go. Let's take a few more here. Perseus18 writes, hey, John, I'm really not into the Shaw and Deckard movie. I still haven't forgiven him for killing Han. I have no idea what you're talking about, so I got to move on. Sorry. This is what happens when I don't have time to screen the questions. Let's see. John, Patreon, if you had to cross Star Wars with another franchise, never. No, death to the universe first. No, never cross Star Wars with anything. That's stupid. What's next? Enigma461 writes, John, thought it is hilarious. I'm not quite sure that's what that's a response to. Next one. Jose HR 17 writes, John, do you think we will ever get another X-Men film with the original cast minus Jackman Stewart? Great question. I don't think so. And I think if they ever did try to get the original cast back, you can't do it without Stewart or Jackman. You're taking out the heart and soul of what made up the original cast and trying to do a nostalgia play by bringing them all back together again without the two most important characters. That's like doing another Dukes of Hazzard show without Bo and Luke. That's what that's doing like. And some of you are right now some of you are like 12 years old going, wait, what's Dukes of Hazzard? Okay, well, anyway, that's like saying, hey, let's do another Breaking Bad without Jesse and Heisenberg. Let's do that. Let's do that, but without the main two characters. And let's see what happens. No one's going to watch. No one will care. If you take out the heart and soul of the show, then you can't do it. So No, I don't think you can do it. I don't think that's possible. Let's see. This one comes to us from Ty Geffen, who writes, John, would you like to see animated Star Wars movies in between the saga films and spin-offs? Nope, not interested. Don't get me wrong. Of course, if they did it, I'd be there. But if I have my druthers, I would not want that at all. John Wicks Beer writes, when should we hear from Warner Brothers that they are lifting the embargo for Justice League earlier than the day before? Soon. I think a lot of that's going to be based on the reactions they get from the early press screenings that will help them determine if they're going to lift that embargo or not. Look, I still believe they're going to lift the embargo. I still believe that. But I will agree with critics out there that if they don't lift the embargo, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. But I'm just going to go on it and say sure. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. It really is an honor when you guys join me for this show. It's that you guys would take some of the time out of your day to join me. Don't forget, a little bit later today, the next short video installment of the movie news feed. That'll come up around 1 or 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time this afternoon. I'm going to go to a Toronto Maple Leafs hockey game tonight. I don't get a lot of chances to do that since I don't live in Canada anymore. But I'm going to go watch the Leafs play the Kings tonight and bought us some tickets. I'm really excited about that. Of course, guys, make sure click the thumbs up button, leave a comment in the comment section, share this video around on Facebook and on Twitter. Again, make sure you visit my Patreon page as well and follow me on social media simply at John Campea. That'll do it for me for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. You guys are the best. And until next time, bye-bye.